learning experience in the metaphysics to be more clairvoyant, clairaudient, clairsentient. And sometimes I'll talk about all three words, but in essence, what you're looking at is in tuning yourself to your environment and the peoples and places and things around you. It's real important that you understand that you have to make a conscious thought, a conscious act of opening a door to this environment. Once you enter, it's very difficult to say, I no longer want this. At times in my life, in the last 7 years, I've gotten to the point of saying, I don't know if I want this. And I've driven in my car, and the spirits in the car will shake my car and said, you made a pledge. I go, okay, no problem. So as I open the door to learning more, the abilities have also increased. So let me back up, and I've already dropped something here. I did make some notes so I don't forget. So there's a couple points I really want to bring up, and I'll cover with you today. As I was saying, once you open the door to this environment, you will become hungry and hungrier. Your attitude of who you are, what you are, where you came from, your point of origin, your habits, your desires. I'm getting a little bit of feedback here. I hope it doesn't hurt anything. Also, I want to add very carefully your prejudices. Most of our audience are women. So if you have a difficult time working and dealing with men, then make that clear. You men have issues also. Identify your issues, because without realizing it, who you are, how you were raised, how your parents were raised, your origins, your ethnic groups, and your prejudices will influence you how you read people. When you become clear about that and identify your attitude, if you have to, I want you to put your prejudices aside, because when you read people and touch their essence, I don't want you in the middle of it. Learning to focus and becoming with that person is so important that if you get in the middle of it, you'll question every thought that comes to you and it will be blocked. Does that make sense? So as we talk about what's going on today, I'm going to turn this around just a little bit. As we talk about what I will discuss with you, remember who you are cannot be taken away from you. But I've learned that even in illnesses or if I have disharmony in my life, as I become more clairvoyant, I've been learning to shift that off to one side and remove it from my consciousness. I sometimes tell my people that love me the most, I'm not sure I know where Nancy is. I'm certainly not two split personalities. But there seems to be some kind of switch that has allowed me to remove Nancy and her prejudices, her attitudes, and how she became where she is today, and only concentrate on you. When I am in that space, the room could burn down, and I would be concentrated on what you're about. I've also learned to remove my eyesight. As I look at persons around the room here, we're so varied. Your attitude, my attitude also varies. But human beings have a tendency to judge how we view and see people. Remember, only the essence of who they are in the spirit is what you look at. Because at times I've judged and I've been wrong. And as I stepped into that person, as they walk up to me and say, I need help, my prejudice was put there in front of me. And then I had to work harder to remove it. So as you become more psychic and you do fairs, or you're put in a large group like this, I could just eat you people up. I love this. And I've loved it more because how you present yourself to me is something that you desire. It's not necessarily who your spirit is. So your attitude is very important. And that's what I was just addressing, your attitude and your programming. Unless you remove the programming from your childhood, your failed marriages, or your health issues, then at that time can you be clear on who you are. Your fears will stop you from becoming everything you want to become. So in essence, I was talking about attitude and programming and taking control of your spiritual life. It's interesting that my father and my mother were two different spiritual beginnings. Okay, we're talking science of mind, Christian Science, Lutheran, Presbyterian, and then I married a Catholic. Whoa! How is it that I'm perceiving this? When I walked into this arena, I didn't even believe in past life information. Some of you have a lot of information in your past on spiritual upbringing. You will find that some ethnic groups, Catholic, Muslim, Buddhist, perceive information varied. So to become better at what you do, you have to learn and honor your spiritual upbringing, but the people you deal with. As many times as I've talked to a Catholic, I've talked to a Jewish person. As many times as I've talked to a Buddhist, I have talked to other ethnic cultures, even people who don't speak English. How will you handle that information? Will you learn to address what they are ethnically and culturally raised, or are you going to put your prejudice into it? Careful. What I'm saying is that I will show you techniques, and not show you, I will explain to you techniques I've learned to become where I am. But until you learn to control your attitude, also honor the cultures of whom you're speaking to. Learn to define the information, then put it in their way that they will understand it. I will never talk to an Indian woman who's married to an Indian man and tell her to confront her husband unless I have her permission to understand that's how she was raised. Do you understand that? So clarifying who you are and who your client is very important to open a door to receiving information. And also with this, I want to go into the next step because this is sequentially trying to address these issues. I've taught classes on each of these subjects, believe it or not. There's a lot of you in here that were born with a great deal of natural talent. My father, his mother, myself, and one of my children are very gifted. The people in the peripheral around us are okay with the gift, though they not necessarily embrace it. It was very, very difficult for me to talk to my mom one day and say, by the way, Mom, remember the talent my father and his mother had and you didn't like? Guess what I want to do with my life? And if you read my book, my way of proving to her was to draw a girlfriend of hers. My mother moved to Marysville when she was 12 years old, and she met a woman named Helen. And I drew that friend's portrait, the woman's alive, as my mother met her at 12, and I presented it to her, and it's in my book. And in that way, my mother knew that I had a gift so great that it would be selfish of me not to share it. Okay? And that's how I look at this gift. I didn't go into it for ego as much as I have a gift. God wants me to do this. I better share it. And that's my intent. And so you naturally need to know that. There's some of you that come in with a small amount of talent, but a great deal of desire. That desire is what I want you to look at. People say, Nancy, you have a wonderful gift. How did you learn to develop it? Oh my gosh. I was already at that point of development, but I didn't know what it was. So my hours of practicing within this framework was not necessarily to develop it, but learn to identify it and control it. Okay? So some of you will start at a smaller scale. So as I ask you to walk in this world, become more psychic, what your attitude needs to be then is how many hours a day are you willing to give to this talent? If I told you I'm lucky to get 3 or 4 days off a month, believe that. If I tell you that on some days I'm not off the phone for 6 hours straight, or in my office for 6 hours straight, you better believe, you better look at that at least once or twice a week to get started. I would ask that if anybody wants to be clairvoyant, you need to do it every day. An hour to a half hour at least. Why am I asking you to do that? Because we become afraid. We believe I cannot be that way. And so you get started in this, you go, oh my gosh, that's scary, so maybe I won't do it today. Go back and conquer that fear. The fear I'm talking about is the knowledge you will get from someone else and have to put back to them. Every time you do a reading, it's exciting. But be clear that you're helping someone else with their own spiritual path, not yours. And you want to be right. If you go with that intent of clarifying your abilities, develop them every day. So what I'm asking you to do is, as I've talked to you about your attitude, your programming, your spiritual life, now I'm asking you, before we get started, to think about, as you're hearing me develop this, I can do what she's going to ask me to do. I can put the time in it because my desire and my attitude is to help everybody that I come in talk with that gives me permission to talk about their needs on the mundane and on the spiritual, because that's what they're asking of me. Am I willing to take that responsibility? Am I willing to spend the time that it takes to, with clarity, to develop that level of expertise? There's a lot of people in the world. There's a lot of readers. Thank goodness we're not alike. I really like Rosemary Dean. But we are as different as day and night. Thank goodness. If you go to see Rosemary and then you come see me, the information you receive is twice-fold. It may blend itself from one side to the other. But because we're so wonderfully different and so gifted, the information received can be received on 2 different levels. It's not that she receives it wrong or right. It's not that I receive it wrong or right. It's the way that we are raised in our attitude, and our communication, our desire to put the information to you is given. I'm called them nuts and bolts. Some people say, as I said earlier, I listened to a friend's tape. Now I'm almost afraid to come. And I say, why is that? And they said, because you're too right. I don't know if I can hear it yet. And I say to them, please don't come to me then. Until you're ready, you need to see somebody else. Because what they're needing to address They're not ready yet if they're not ready to hear me. Okay? So with that, you need to learn communication skills. You need to learn all kinds of people. Anytime you can be in a group of people that are different than yourself, please open the door. I want you to open to all ethnic groups, all cultures, all age groups, until you remove the prejudice of your past and are willing to put an hour a day in and to increase it as time goes on, then surely you'll gain the expertise to be able to do what I do on the stage. Oh, I don't know if I want to go on stage, Nancy, that's too scary. Why is that? Why not attain and look to that as an ultimate goal? If you don't have goals in your life, you don't have any ring to hold on to, you will back away from it. If you walk in this world, the hunger of it is going to eat you until you get to that level. Now, we're talking about reading, we're talking about sharing information, we're talking about receiving information, interpreting it. I will ask questions later on, but I'm going to address how to. What you're getting from me now is the first vital steps to open the door to doing it right with clarity. And what I just said was, as you have an opportunity to read people and interpret psychic information and give it back so they will understand at the level they need. We're talking ethnic groups, we're talking culturally, we're talking all levels of society. I said, when they ask, as you become better at your craft, I call it a craft, when you're walking into the mall or go to the movies or see your families, you don't walk up to them and say, I'm a budding psychic, I want to read you. I've had so many people try that on me. I've gone to conventions, I've gone to the shows, people have seen me. And a lot of times people walk up and say, oh, you did a reading, you're so good, thank you very much. And they, by the way, I'm reading and I want to read you. You know, it offends me just a little bit. I'm kind of stubborn. I don't know how much free will there is since I've done so many readings. I appreciate that people want to read me, but please read my friend if they'll give permission. I am at the point now where I like free will. If I have a chance to learn something, I will ask, if I need to. But I'm at the point now where it's more fun to live life every day to see if we can create it versus always getting the answer. When we talk of free will, when you read somebody, people say, you were good, but it didn't happen this way. When we talk of free will, when we talk about an individual you are reading with their permission, okay, if you're here, you must have permission. I must have permission to talk to you, but not necessarily to read you because you're here on a different format. If we get done soon enough, if I ask you questions, then you've given me your permission, right? So it has to be a level of permission. Always remember that. That's very, very important. Because I've read so many people, and I want to go back to that for a moment, I believe that on some level we're born to be who we are. We have destiny out in front of us. There are some things in your life you will do, however path it takes to get there. We can either go a straight line or we can curve around a mountain or two to get there. Those are the minor things that you have free will. It's easy to say, I want to wear these shoes versus these shoes. I still ended up here. There are some things we cannot change on our path. There is some minor free will. The ultimate goal of what you need to learn, your karmic path, your destiny, your purpose and passion to be here and why you're here, those things cannot be changed. Those things are sometimes harder to get than the easiest thing to get. Sometimes people say, you're going to take a trip, I can see this. You're going to go all the way to the East Coast, but you don't know what state. They know they want to go and see the upper colonies in the autumn, but they haven't decided what state. So you may get this trip, which is part of the destiny, but you may not get which place they need to go to. See how free will interplays? But you may not know that they're going to go back to visit Grandma because she's going to die the week they come back. That's the reason for the trip. You see how that works? So there's some things we have to do because that's part of our programming. So getting started. When I tell people, when I'm talking about your attitude and where you come from, we clarified that. We clarified that you need permission to talk to people. You need to know who you're talking to, because until you're clear about who you are and your prejudices and get them out of the way, then maybe you better start studying a little bit longer before you start talking to your clients. So the next thing I want to start talking about is something that's really close to me and my brain. I came from an engineering world. You can't get more left brain than I am. I dealt with numbers. You know the people that drive out with the little wheels in the street? Guess what I used to do? Like this, you know? I'd sit there with a little calculator and I'd come back, and then I would draw all afternoon. I couldn't believe they'd pay me to draw. I loved it. But because I questioned everything, because I was number-oriented, That's how I take my information. Now I need to tell you, I used to be an artist too. I can draw. Somewhere in here, the bridge to communicate to both sides was allowed to be given to me. They have found that intuitive people, if you want to read on this, Eileen Garrett, Arthur Ford, Emmanuel Swinburne, Andrew Jackson Davis, some of the really big heavyweights in our world, Eric Casey, they're very intuitive, but you also find them ambidextrous, artistic, creative, analytical. Eileen Garrett was the most intuitive person that we would ever wish to meet. And I wish I could have met her because she only died in the 70s. She ran a newspaper. Yet she could do out-of-body experiences and let other people into her presence, and she was absolutely fabulous. They have found that people who are very intuitive due to postmortem examinations found that the bridge between the left sphere and the right sphere, that bridge of that tissue can be very, very large. I've given permission to all the people I love and care most about that when I'm gone, take this out and get a good look. I imagine it's going to be really interesting. I don't know if it's going to be plaid or polka dotted, but it's going to be different. Because not only my left brain, but right brain, very artistic and creative, and I love to write, I'm very intuitive. There's some kind of inner bridging that has allowed me to be more psychic than my sister. I want you to give a thought to something. I cannot sing a tune. I try in the shower, but please not too loud so everybody else can hear. My sister is a natural at playing the piano and the guitar, and she sings beautifully. But she doesn't have the talent. My father did, though. He could sing and dance, but he was very psychic. I find that intriguing. I would say that we're all born with an ability from 1 to 10. The ability that goes higher up to 10, I feel, is a manner of being able to turn the switch on to become more clairvoyant or more artistic. How many of you have learned to take typing classes? You start out picking like this. After the first year, aren't you quite a bit faster? Hopefully. Okay, I'm really that way. When I was working in telecom before I became an engineering person, I was in the stenopoll, shorthand and typing. I was really fast. Remember, it's a left brain analytical, but I was fast. I used to burn the filaments up on the magnetic tape computers, and that clocked at 120 words a minute. So what I want to say to that is, there must be a mechanism within some of us that turns the switch on faster. Don't feel bad that you can't learn as fast as the person next to you. Please do not put jealousy, because that jealousy is an attitude, and the attitude will stop you from growing. There was a spiritual church I was connected with, and this gentleman who was in his 60s wanted to become a minister. And he waited later in life because he had his career, but he wanted to attain a level that his father had. His father had become a spiritual minister within an organization in Auburn, and I think you know which group that is. He started at 60. He was in the dark for 12 years. He meditated and tried to do psychic involvement for 12 years. Finally, at 72, he got his ministry. All right? And he goes to the services all the time. I know he lives in Nevada. He drives down to be a pastor once in a while. And I'm so grateful that he took the time. I don't want to hear that you're frustrated and you left after a week, after a year, after 2 years. If you get up to 12 years, I will hug you because you deserve it. Just because I can turn this on and off that fast doesn't mean you can't if you practice. But don't get discouraged, because if you're here to learn, then that's part of your spiritual growth. That's part of your karmic past. If that's your destiny to save one person from something they need help from, then that was the purpose of your life. How many times have you heard the expression, in my lifetime I've had one best friend? Then your life has been worthwhile because you helped one person in your lifetime. Look at that as very important. Don't negate the importance of what you could do for somebody else. People come to me and say, what is the passion and the path of, what is my path in this lifetime? What is my passion? I want to quit my job. I'm going to do it next Friday. And I go, you want me to tell you? Why don't you come back after another year when you've given it really some thought? If they have to have someone tell them, then they need to evaluate one more time. If you haven't got that passion written all over you, and you come in with it on your forehead and it's just out of your mouth, I want to do this, I want to do that, then you're going to be ready because you're going to put the time to it. There's been opportunities in my lifetime and they say, would you like this job versus that job versus something over here? And until you have a radiant passion for something, that's when you're going to open the door to learning this. And that's very, very important. There's a gentleman in the audience here whose wife was an artist. And he showed me some of the work, and I really appreciate it because she has evidently had a wonderful passion for these paintings. I actually saw in one of the paintings, and I'm glad he's here because it reminded me, there was a nature scene. And one way you look at it one way, and another way, look at it another way. With her passion, she was able to tap into spirit and make it go through her into her paintings. I know another lady in Citrus Heights who draws pictures of wildlife, of fish, of the desert, of the mountains. And every time she does a painting, when you step back, you can see fairies in her paintings. What happens is she doesn't see the fairies until she's done. What a wonderful passion. Wouldn't you love to I'd love to do that. Have nothing to do but paint fairies all day, not knowing it. By painting a tree in a forest, you step back and you see fairies in it. It's wonderful. What a wonderful gift. So we all have wonderful gifts. The thing is that when the spirit has been told that this is what you can do, I want you to be so hungry for it, that's all you think about. Trust me when I tell you that 90% of my conversation in my life is around this. Yeah, it can get kind of tiring, but everything around it, everything that happens to me, I go, all right, God, what did you want? What you doing? Is this what you want me to look at? Okay, so let's go on to something else. The act of meditation and learning to focus is what I was talking about earlier. Your attitudes and who you are, your programming is very important to put in your past. Learning to meditate and remove some of that stuff is really hard. When I first came into this place, Ken Nolly's church, it was interesting because I didn't know I was walking into this environment. God had heard me. I had made a prayer one day. Thank you for my life and my sanity. And if you wish, I will work for you the rest of my life. They call that a high-risk prayer. The car shook. I was in the car. They heard me. So I was directed to go this direction and learn this wonderful environment. I was told that I needed to learn to meditate. I says, what's that? And we sat and we meditated. And it's interesting because I felt my buns. I felt the floor. I felt my knees. I got real tired in the back. Meditate? I didn't even know what that was yet. Thank you very much. I now know that I'm probably the world's fastest meditator. It takes me 3.5 seconds to get down and there into you. If I talk to you and you say you want me to address somebody in New York, it takes me another 1.5 seconds. Boy, is that woman fast. I learned to meditate, focus, get there, and get back with information. Can you do that? Absolutely. Would you please learn to do that? Someone's got to take my job pretty soon, okay? I don't know how long I'll work. I'll work as long as God allows me. He says I have 7 more books to write, 8 more books. I'll never give up this, but there must be someone in there. There's the young lady there. I wonder if she'll take my job here, huh? I have no ego. I want you to do this. I want you to learn how to do this. I want you to open the door to do this. Please, would you help everybody on here? Everybody help everybody with permission. Come to me with the big poo-poos. That's what I'm here for. Yes, I'm entertaining, but that's what I'm here for. I want you to learn how to do this. It's so exciting to think you tap into a universal space that we cannot identify. I asked Spirit one day, I said, explain to me how this works. He said, make bubbles in a sink and hold them in your hands. As many bubbles as you can create, that's how many dimensions there are. You do not travel within your own dimension. You travel outside of your dimension for the information. There's no time, no distance, no friction. Nothing holding you back, but you yourself from receiving the information. I know when that juices are running. If I can't read you, guess why? That's because you don't want to know, or you can't know, or you shouldn't know, or not yet. Because I can go from one person next and go, wow, that was fabulous. The next person, boom. Well, something's going on here. They're not ready for me. Go to the next person. Bam, it's on. I know it has to do with the person I'm talking to, so don't get discouraged about that. Learning to focus and knowing you're there with that person enables you to get the information with clarity. People call me up and they say, I want a session with you. You know what I say the first thing? Please have fun with me. I don't know how to do this. If I knew how to do this, I'd put it in a box and package it and I'd sell it to you for a nickel. Because it's that important. Have fun with me. Open the door to the information. You really want to know? So do I. For you, because that's what you're asking. When you've learned to focus and you can't get it, then you won't hold that failure too close to your heart. Because you'll know the person you're talking to isn't ready, can't know, shouldn't know, and needs to make the choice on their own. Don't hold it that close to your heart. Meditating is the act of knowing and getting to that place of learning to focus. Meditating is an act of knowing who you are and your boundaries and the perimeters of your knowledge. When I meditate, I seriously mean really meditate, when I sit in a chair long enough to be noticed, I'm sitting for more than 10 minutes. If I have my eyes closed, and you will notice she's got her eyes closed, guess what I'm doing? I'm traveling within my body and within my mind. I'm traveling within the conscious of who I am and understanding my own vibration rate. If I don't know who I am, and my prejudices, and my attitude, if I don't know what I'm about and what's bothering my life, if I'm not sitting there contemplating it, then if I step into you, how do I know the difference? How do I know that what I'm getting from you is your stuff, not mine? Another thing to meditate and contemplate is how powerful being are you? Seems like a sip of coffee might help at this moment. Think about it for a moment. When you sit and meditate, do you feel your vibration rate? Do you sense your heart? Do you feel it beating? Do you know what your feet and your hands and your head feels like? How many of you have heard Deepak chakra? I love the expression he says, every part of your body is part of the total consciousness. As you think, so shall you become. As you think, so does your toenail. Every essence of you carries the same energy. If you're having a bad day, your toenail is having a very bad day. How many of us have had bad days and a few months later our hair has a bad day? It takes that long for our hair to catch up to our last bad day, right? Complexion's the same way. We've had a bad day, 2 days later our face breaks out, right? Okay, that's how it works. We will catch up on ourselves. When you meditate, you relax your essence. You know who you are, your attitude. You think about it when you're relaxing. I want you to relax to the point of almost disappearing with your touch of your body. You've forgotten what the legs feel like and the arms feel like. Put beautiful music on if you have to. You get to that level of entering the deepest part of your mind and being happy with who you are. Because you need that attitude to be able to focus. When I focus and I get to where I need to go to get to you, I'm in the deepest part of my mind. I cannot feel my body, nor my prejudices, and my focus is such with clarity that I can read anybody, if they allow it, including your cat, your house, your car, and I've done that. A baseball mitt, a dog ball, and a pair of lacy underwear. It doesn't seem to matter. If I'm clear with who I am and my attitude is correct, my focus is there and I'm with you. When you meditate, that's what I ask you to find. Clear with yourself. The next step to meditating, how powerful are you? Can you increase your heart rate? Can you lower your heart rate? Can you move your energy from side to side? Can you build a heat level? Can you feel the different levels of energy that you have? We all have at least 3. I've had people say 7. I've had a lady in New York called Anna. She flattered me. I didn't know if I wanted to talk to her. She seemed a little interesting, off, unusual, to the point I went, I wonder what she's about. She said, you have more energy spheres around you than I have ever felt of anybody else. I don't let people talk to me, but I will let you. You have 1,400 levels. I went, whoa. I never heard of such a thing. But I talked to her, and it was interesting because I felt her spirit, and she was true. I went, wow, I got 1,400 levels, layers. I can only feel about 3 or 4. Somewhere, they go higher and higher. And what she was telling me that, as clear as you are, as pure as your heart, and your intent, are your God focus, as high as you can reach and get information, that's your spiritual plane. She says, you really reach high, and your intent is pure, and your energy is great. That's why I can move it to such extents and get to what I need. A lady in the audience one night, she had a ring, or I was doing a class, and she says, I'm interested in knowing about this item. I didn't have to touch it. I didn't have to touch her. I went right to the ring and read the ring. Had a little class and people are holding photographs. I read the photograph in somebody else's hand from the underside, not the photograph side. All right? You get clear on what your intent is, move your attitudes and your opinions about life, and get to where you go with such clarity that it's there. Okay, so as I've been talking about all the steps, now you've identified you as a person, your attitude, now your energy. And you say, well, Nancy, I get in there, I don't feel nothing. Well, I want you to feel something. I want you to think about moving your respiration, lowering your heartbeat, feeling the power within you as a person. Can you move it from side to side? Can you leave your body? Okay? Can you feel the room? Keep your eyes closed. Before class started, I was kind of amused. I was talking to somebody, And, oh, I was addressing the word anybody. The other day, Lou asked me, he says, is there people in the room? I can't remember the exact words. Is there anybody here? And I go, flash. Oh, we're outdoors. That's what it was. And I've come to realize that when I know if there's spirit around, someone says, is there a spirit? Is there anybody here? And I'm holding back from wanting to know. I do a flash. I move my energy. Poof.